chances are it came and went and you missed it. Not because it didn't last long, it's always 6 months long, but because not much happened when it was here, at least not in the U.S. I'm talking about the 2013 Atlantic hurricane season, which ended quietly last Saturday. Now, there were 13 named storms above the average of 12, but only 2 became hurricanes, way below average. The last year with 2 or fewer hurricanes in the Atlantic was 1982. And there were no major hurricanes this year, Category 3 or higher. The last time that happened was 1994. Even the 2 hurricanes that formed, Umberto and Ingrid, were weak Category 1 storms with maximum winds of 85 miles per hour, the lowest maximum intensity for a season's strongest hurricane in 45 years. The only storm to make landfall in the U.S. was the first of the season, Tropical Storm Andrea, in early June, which came ashore on the Gulf Coast of Florida on June 6th, bringing a few tornadoes and some flooding rains. Now, another way to quantify the relative quiet of this past tropical season is with a measure called accumulated cyclone energy, or ACE, which takes into account the strength and duration of storms. It's kind of a damage potential measure. And here's a plot of ACE for each year back to 1970. This year's was the lowest since 1983, and only about 30% of the long-term average, which I've indicated here with this dark line. In fact, the ACE of this entire season was smaller than the ACE of some recent individual hurricanes, such as Ike and Igor. To get another sense for just how wimpy this season was, the hurricane hunters flew just 45 missions this year that took less than 500 total flight hours. That's the fewest in nearly 50 years. It was also a rough year to be a seasonal hurricane forecaster, as all the preseason forecasts that I'm aware of, and this is just a sampling, called for at least 7 hurricanes and at least 3 of them to be major. Remember, there were only 2 hurricanes this season and none were major, so these forecasts were a huge bust. In fairness, the predictors that most seasonal forecasters use, such as the state of El Nino and anomalies in ocean temperature, all pointed towards at least an average season. But several factors that are very difficult to foresee months in advance intervened to suppress activity this year. For example, let's focus on the part of the Atlantic where most tropical cyclones form, called the main development region, the area in the rectangle. Here's the departure from average of relative humidity at 10,000 feet this past August and September. The green, yellow, orange, and red mean drier than average, and there was plenty of that to go around through the entire main development region. And if we go up to 20,000 feet, the picture is similar, mostly drier than average. And it's tough to build tall thunderstorms when anomalously dry air dominates the mid-levels of the atmosphere. There's also evidence that the easterly flow that brings disturbances out of Africa into the Atlantic Ocean was slower than average this year, which would weaken the pool of potential seedlings that form the nucleus for more than 80% of all of the major hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean. Of course, all this was good news for the United States, which has now gone 8 years without a major hurricane making landfall, the longest such stretch since at least the late 1800s. Fred is back with the extended forecast next.